You have to really trust yourself, I think, to give something space.
Welcome everyone to Art Lounge, part 14 of the project stream. Thanks for tuning in. I did more work on a project. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I stayed up so late last night, was trying to get all this detail down in comparison to the reference. Made a few subtle changes here and there. I think it looks pretty good, and I'm hoping that by the end of the stream I could already start doing the colors, because everything else seems about right, to be honest.
Just be like, here I am, here's my
At least to my satisfaction at this point. And since everything is layered anyways, most of the stuff is layered, or things that I'm gonna want to change is layered, it's a safe bet. Ooh. Let's change this up. I think there's a lot more work to do on the mandolin, so I'm going to try to focus on that, at least for the first half. I think the overall size of it as well needs a little changing. It's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger body. gonna need to do a couple of resizing techniques. This can be a lot of erasing, I can already tell. Little wig wig adjustment. No. Just seemed a little skewed. I think that's about more accurate. Telling you, this angle, this tilt of the head is so challenging. Just wondering if I'm like nitpicking at this point. Let's see if I can just increase the size of the whole mandolin. The benefit of having the strings on a different layer. Had it not been the case, this would have been a total disaster. I think that's about right. But now it's just time for lots of correction and erasing. Uh-oh. A little disconnect there. Not too bad. That's fixable. I also did notice that I drew her shirt a little too low. But also an easy fix. kind of curious to check out this other app that recently got a lot of traction called Krita, I think. It is an open source application. It's supposed to be very powerful and is totally free to try out. So, not to try out, just to use it. I'm kind of curious to see, like, how much better really is it in comparison to these other apps. Ever since I switched over to Clip Studio, I haven't looked back into Photoshop, especially because I don't agree with their pricing. I think it's extremely expensive, and they're being greedy. It's, I'm sure it's like $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar company. It gets a lot of money, and they've been always pricing it pretty high, Photoshop and the whole like Adobe Suite thing. Not to mention how many like professional industries and companies use it and pay for it and stuff. So it's good to see that there's other companies who are coming in and providing people with alternatives. Because just like any other company, if they don't have anybody who is who's providing alternatives, then they could charge whatever they want, because nobody else, what else are they going to use, you know? I used to just like want as less apps as possible, and I still would, you know. It's just so much of signing up and notifications and emails and all that stuff and usernames, and I want to have that to a minimum. But these companies like basically take advantage of that if that's what you want, because they're like, yeah, sure, we could provide all that, and then we're gonna do whatever we want because you have no alternatives. Nobody could beat our whatever product, and then it just turns to greed and corruption and all that other stuff. Start backing really corrupt whatever investors or policies. So I would really like to find an alternative with the right sense of values to like Instagram or the whole like meta thing. Like, just don't care for it. Never cared for Facebook. I don't think there was ever a point where I was an avid user of it, and I'm actually, now I'm grateful. Like, thank God. I've heard good things about Krita. And I've seen posts about it from like professional artists as well, talking about how good it is. So it sounds promising. I'm glad that's there in case Clip Studio also decides to join that capitalist greed. Which right now I don't see that happen. Having to erase all that, I'm wondering, should I like start putting those lines back in there? I think it's just an interesting texture. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them back in and then play around with it with color, like either erase them all or put them on a different layer and just hide them and see what it looks like when I use color. I mean, the color isn't that much different, to be honest. Like, this might as well as be gray because the lines are so thin. And the color that I'm going to be using is gray, so we'll wait and see what it looks like once I start adding the color of the shirt. Just supposed to be a light gray, so it might just blend in pretty nicely. I like this. This isn't bad. It's the same artist, Abstraction. Same DJ, I guess. Good job, Abstraction.
But it's not a thing about making it accurate. It's a thing about making it feel right.
It's looking good, everyone. It's looking like I will actually be able to start coloring today. I always have like hesitancy to take it to the next step because I want to perfect the previous step. It is that perfectionist side of me that's coming out. The hyper realist that's just like wants to get everything down to a T.
Take if it's an accident that's an error that feels good, then you leave it in. You know, you want those.
Let's see if we could just reduce the size of it. Or like make her chin a little thinner.
It's not a thing about making it accurate. It's a thing about making it feel right.
I don't know. Gonna give it one more go.
But it's not a thing about making it accurate.
It's about making it feel right. It's so true, actually.
All the errors.
I mean, it kind of plays into this,
It's about getting it to feel right.
what I'm doing right now. Because if I focus way too much on accuracy, it's going to be rigid and overworked, and it's not going to feel right. Get out of my head, pretzel. I like how in modern day people are just like, oh, it's the algorithm. You know, that's fine. Like, just because it explains what's causing all this stuff to like really match every single thing that you do online and have it monitor like all your likes and dislikes and everything else. Oh, it's an algorithm. That's okay.
If it's an accident that's an error that feels good, then you leave it in.
I mean, I don't think this is
You know,
this is definitely not what it is. It's just a coincidence. But on that topic, so if one day you don't agree with the application or who's running it or whatever else, they got all this information, and it makes people hesitant to take action against these companies or not to like contribute to them or whatever else. I think it just plays into that kind of. Might not be now, but it is something that is a possibility, and that's the problem. Or if they decide to line up with certain type of politics, for example, and then they could, you know, they could be schmoozed into revealing some of that data to whoever is at their corporate cocktail party or whatever. Well, I guess you are one of the top investors in our company, so sure, maybe I'll accidentally leak all this information that might also have information on influential politicians. Whoops. I am gonna be a billionaire though, right? You can invest in my company even more, right? It's just this like disgusting corporate garbage that comes out. Or the type of business practices that they don't curtail, don't curb. Because money, because capitalism. I don't personally have anything against money. I think it's a great way for people to be independent. You know, I think it's just the idea of capitalism, that you just capitalize on whatever you possibly can. So like no rules, no regulations, no ethics, no consideration, nothing, just money. You know, that's what capitalism is basically. It's just money, money, money. That's it. Whatever you could do, however you can get it, that's all that matters. And I don't agree with that. I mean, that's why there's such things as like drug trafficking, sex trafficking, right? It's like, if the idea of money or capitalizing on whatever wasn't the game, then would they actually do any of those things? Like, what reason would they have to do any of that? It would be absolutely a lost cause, a waste of time. They wouldn't want to do any of that stuff anyways. Like, everything that entails to do all that, they do it because they get a lot of money. And with the idea of capitalism, of like, you know, lenient rules, not really caring about it, nobody should be telling anybody what to do or whatever with the money, you know, the whole free market thing. Yeah, they just do it. They get away with it because they can bribe people and all that stuff. So what I mean is, really, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that there should be better policies. You know, I think that, like, for example, if you have a person who drives recklessly and ends up causing an accident and, you know, injuring a lot of people and, you know, causing a lot of problems, we shouldn't abolish cars because of that, right? Let's say there's a bunch of people who drive like that and they're terrible. And just take away their license. Or just make better signs, you know, have stricter road surveillance when it comes to that. To take away all that. So it's the same idea as like with money. There's a bunch of people doing awful things, and just capitalism is basically that. It's just saying, do whatever you want. Here's a car, drive however you like. Nobody should be telling you what to do with your car. You should be able to drive it however you feel like. And if you end up, you know, murdering a bunch of people with it because you just don't care, well, that's fine, because, you know, carism, man, it's the best. Nobody should say anything about that. That's really my gripe with it. It's not so much that I'm like, yeah, you know, people should all just be depending on like good behavior or whatever, that's just not realistic. Always gonna be some like piece of shit who's just gonna want to do the opposite. So yeah, I don't really think, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just, don't believe in capitalism. I think it's garbage. I think it's just made for terrible people who want to perpetuate it. Who want to perpetuate just being narcissistic, awful people. But I do believe that money with effective policies is good. Basically, prioritizing progressive economy and society over money is what I'm saying. That's, I think, the best best route. Yeah, you know, talking about apps and how they use your information and what kind of things they do with it, and whether they decide to leak that info or whatnot. I mean, it might not matter so much for viewers or me or whatever, but in terms of like people out there who are really trying to create change towards the better, you know, these apps have all that info on them, and I'm sure they're like snooping around other ways, and that becomes awful. I'm wondering if like maybe I'm if I'm making the lines too dark. Like this scroll came out really nice, I like that. But I think because I'm putting in too many lines, I'm kind of darkening it, whereas I really wanted to maintain like a thin look. I'm trying to balance that out. By adding more lines on the other side. Like this is too prominent. It shouldn't be that prominent. It's really there for composition. Am I fussing around with the hair too much? Maybe. I mean, I'm kind of liking how it's turning out because of this curl. You know, it's pushing me to like define these lines a little bit more. And it's kind of coming out all right. That's 850, which means I didn't get start coloring. Part of me is a little tempted to just say, hey, it's gonna be coloring comics. Today I'm just gonna do 2 hours of the project stream. I think the other benefit to it is that it's kind of distinguishing itself from, like, the hair detail in the hair. It's distinguishing itself from the dress. You know, because the lines are about the same. But the goal was to make that distinction more from color than the lines. I think I'm gonna go over just a little bit. So like 805, and then I'm gonna switch over to watercoloring comics. I think I'm enjoying this also because it's a break from being so exact with lines. And it's like a free-flowing kind of process at this point. The only problem with all this is that if I'm going to put all this work into the hair, I might as well do it for the other areas as well. Because now it's like this and this are super defined, and they're kind of taking the focus of everything else. I also don't want to give her helmet hair, where it's like it's so overworked that everything else is diminished. In comparison. Yeah, it's a nice break from having to be really tedious about all the details on the face, especially. I was just so focused on that. But I like the whole process. You know, I enjoy that there's a point where I do that, and then I take a break from it and I do something else. It's kind of similar to like the whole comics process. It's like you start out with like a really light sketch and it's free flowing and it's easy and it's not as focused heavily on detail. Then you switch over into doing a little bit more detail. Then you do heavy detail. And then inking is like this break in a sense. So you're just kind of like weaving in and out of these steps, these processes. Not spending way too much time in one or the other, and just kind of knowing when to limit it in a sense, move on to other areas. And I kind of wanted, I was trying to do that with this as well, like switching between the face to the mandolin to the clothes. And just weaving through that. This is the part that gets a little dicey. Like once I start defining the outer lines, it starts to form like a helmet. And I don't want to do that. So I want to be very wise about my line selection here. there was a painting that I once did. It was a portrait, and it was an oil painting, and I spent a lot of time on it. And when it got to the hair, I kind of wanted to play around with like this idea of like realism and comic book feel. So I didn't do much work on the hair, and I ended up giving like really thick outline for that comic book vibe, while having a very like almost hyper-realistic face. And it didn't really turn out well. Like, I'm looking at it now, you know, I look through my old stuff, and I was like, could have done better with that. But that's the learning process. You do it, and then you're like, okay, I could do better next time. And I could revisit it, you know, essentially like it's an oil painting, so you could just paint over, basically. So maybe at some point I will. And fix the helmet hair. Dare I? Just can't help myself, can I? When it comes to this. Damn these shadows. Damn these nose shadows. They're so well blended in together, I just can't pinpoint the exterior line of them. The continuous battle between shadows. Shadows and light. think it's better. Gonna chalk it up to that. I think working on the hair gave me a boost in detail noticing, I guess. It's so hard to stop. This is difficult. Maybe just a couple of more lines. I'm in that zone where, you know, my brush strokes are much better. And I just don't want to, I don't want to break that concentration. And I am also excited that I'm coming closer to the end of the project. Like, the big hurdle is almost over. I'm like over it. Which is like getting down the likeness and, at least to my satisfaction. I'm gonna do one more thing. Just right here. I'm gonna reduce her cheek size. Just a little too heavy on the cheeks. Doesn't look too bad the other way. I think it has something to do with like this line right here. Should be more narrow. And this line being a little wider. It's finding the point where it curves inwards. How's that? I think that point is right there. in my head I was wondering, like, is this better than when it comes to painting? Like, in painting, you have to step back every time. If, like, you're too close, when you are really close, let's just say, to notice detail, then you have to step back like this, like I'm zooming out, to kind of see what kind of effect it had. Like, overall effect. And I'm trying to figure out whether this is easier, and I think the answer is yes. Because rather than having to step back physically, you're just pressing buttons and it just does it for you. What do you think, guys? Should I just go over and not do Conan coloring comics today? Just focus on the project. Part of me wants to do that. And part of me really likes the whole watercolor brush experience, and I don't really want to take time away from that. I want to finish this project, and I think that's what I'm battling in right now. I'm just like, should I? Just a smidge. I swear, little details like that make the biggest difference for me. Like, that changes the face so much. I wonder if you guys see that. Decisions. I also have to make another decision after streaming whether I want to catch up on Westworld or continue with Creeks. And if you guys don't know what Creeks is, I highly recommend you check out yesterday's stream. Rather, last night's stream, where I introduced this really fun puzzle game called Creeks. Beautiful work, and that's what I really play it for. I just want to see what new beautiful scenes are going to be popping up next. Whenever I get through the puzzle, what's going to be next as far as the story goes. Like, I'm super excited to discover more about that. So I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? I think this part of the hair is pretty chunky. take it down a bit. I always feel like I'm on the verge of actually getting the right line down for the nose. I'm like, yeah, it's right there. I could see it. And then I make the line and I'm like, no, that's not. Such a weird thing. Yeah, it's just like, I just described the whole drawing process. Your hand-eye coordination is always like, I could see it, but your hand is like, nope, I'm not doing it. Or I don't see it. And it just makes some other line. What if I raise the lip a little bit? I feel like that also plays, like all the different parts, if they're not drawn correctly, you start attributing other parts of the face or body as a mistake when it's something else that's like blaringly obvious. For example, maybe the lip is too low and that's why the nose just looks weird. I'm gonna let it go. I'm not gonna focus too much on it because I'm just gonna overwork it. So I'm gonna break the rule just as once, and I'm just gonna work on the project stream for the rest of the night. and then tomorrow I will be back to the regular schedule. But I feel like this kind of just justifies my desire to change the schedule. So like one day, on Monday, I just focus the entire time on drawing basics for 2 hours, and then Tuesday would be drawing comics. Wednesday would be the project stream, and then Thursday would be coloring comics. I'm still trying to decide on that, ladies and gents, so be patient and I will update you soon. The only thing that's holding me back from doing that is wanting to continue drawing basics daily, because I feel like it really would benefit just going over a lot of this stuff that I covered in each stream daily as a reminder to motivate y'all. This just looks like a mess. I feel like I could do better. And I think to help break up this like helmet hair kind of look, I have to shape another line somewhere in between. Sounds like the DJ used some like Mario sound effects. Super Mario Brothers. That's something I actually really miss about Super Nintendo games, was the two-player function. Like, I don't think there are that many games now, at least not to my knowledge, where it involves like two players like they did in Super Nintendo games. Like, everything is just about online play now, where you have to have like two different computers. I thought it was kind of fun. It's sitting side by side next to somebody and playing the game and just kind of like sharing the screen and just coordinating with each other. Like, I don't know if there are any Super Nintendo players watching the stream right now, but I remember games like Battletoads, for example. It was like a two-player beat-em-up game. You could play it one player, but it had a two-player option. But yeah, you would share the screen. You would go through all the adventures together on the screen, and it was fun. I like that. I feel like they really missed opportunities too. Like, for example, in Donkey Kong, you would just like tag the other player in and they would take over and they would go. Whereas, like, as opposed to creating gameplay that really depends on both players kind of like synergizing, you know, like one character would have an ability that another character would need, and together, like, they would just like be able to get past like an obstacle or something. Like, for example, in the Genesis game, Sonic the Hedgehog, the Sega Genesis one, where you could actually get Tails to lift you up to a new location. But without him, you wouldn't be able to get there. So it's like, if they only played on that more and just focus the game around that sort of gameplay. Not necessarily Sonic the Hedgehog, because that was like such a fast-paced game. But just like of that nature, you know. I just recently saw like a video, somebody was just like freakishly good at that game, where they were doing all sorts of bizarre like edge of the cliff moves all the time and just blazing through each level of Super Mario Brothers. I'm sure you guys seen that before. I always wonder, like, does that person do anything other than that? And how long did it take them to actually get to that point? And what would they have achieved if they only applied that determination on something else? Like, I don't know, playing an instrument, for example. Because after you do that, then what? You know, like, oh yeah, I mastered this ability of playing Mario Brothers, and I'm really good at blazing through all the levels, but you spent all that time and all that effort, and I'm sure it was pretty stressful too. And then once you complete it and it goes viral, then it's nothing. Whereas if you learn an instrument, it's like there's just infinite amount of ways you could play it. Or let's say if you like spent all that time drawing. Not to say I don't like video games, it's the complete opposite. Just don't like certain type of video games. As I mentioned before, first-person shooter games. Don't care for them. They're incredibly stupid. I don't find it fun, like shooting people and headshotting people and all that stuff. Like, that's not entertaining. It's really boring. And it's like people are just like programmed to find that entertaining. If all that's being released around are like, or for the most part, like the really popular games are just first-person shooter games, and people start responding to that. Could also be a way to get population to be okay with wars. I don't think that video games, like some people say, oh, video games cause violence. I think it's the other way around. I think it's just normalizing it more, so that people won't be as outraged when it happens, and it's done for crazy reasons, as it always is. I think it's just like, whatever. I'm gonna go play Counter-Strike or whatever is out there. That's my argument for it. It doesn't cause violence, it normalizes it. And like a chain reaction, you know, like I was saying, if one video game becomes incredibly popular and because of capitalism, somebody else is like, oh, let's make money off of that, and they just make another video game that's just as violent and whatever, and then people jump on that. Just like Snowball. How do we make our more interesting? Oh, the heads explode. Yeah, that's a better one. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like Mortal Kombat. I was like, I don't care for it. Like, even though it's over the top and it's all exaggerated and stuff, I was just like, it's just, I don't find that fun. I don't find that interesting. Like, I liked Street Fighter because it was just so much more fantasy based. And it wasn't about murdering anybody. It was just like, sure, competition or whatever, or like skill and stuff. But at that time, I used to just think, oh, it's cool. Cool characters and cool moves. Like, I really liked Ken's uppercut move. Seeing like that fireball fist, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. How do you do that? Like, that's kind of what appealed to me more. Just never cared for like Mortal Kombat and its fatalities or whatever else. It's just there's just these companies that are playing on people's lack of perspective. Or wanting to be included in a sense. Like, oh, this is popular and all that. That would include me in something. You know, wanting to feel like they're belonged or whatever, like. And these companies just play on that. And people fall into it. It's like, are they really looking out for you in some way? Or are they just making you a worse person and capitalizing on it? And you're just enabling it. That's really the question here. or some kid named Reggie who's like super hyperactive, just like throwing temper tantrums and like throwing things in the house, and he's also really popular in school, and his parents get him whatever he wants. He gets this like really violent video game where he gets to play it, and then he's like popular in school. So he tells everybody, oh, this game is awesome and it's fun, and then kids are just like, well, he's popular, so I guess it's right. And then they pass it on to somebody else, and so on and so forth. And it's just goddamn Reggie. Could be a good song, Goddamn Reggie. And it just talks about what a brat he is. And what a ripple effect his bratty behavior creates. And his friend Gerald, who just gives into it because he wants to be friends with the popular kid. Reggie and Gerald. And Gerald's parents don't really focus on that. They're just like, okay, we'll get you this because it's popular and we want you to be popular too. And before you know it, it's Mortal Kombat 11. And there's like blood splattering everywhere all the time because it's popular. I made a joke, but I actually think there is such thing as Mortal Kombat 11 right now. I don't even know like what number they're on. Thanks to Gerald and Reggie. He's made of characters that represent real life bratty kids. Am I overworking it? Am I overworking the hair? I haven't stepped back to look at that. Like, I feel like I'm spending a little too much time on there. And now this area is really taking the limelight. Let's see if we can simplify it a little bit. I think in the reference it's just darker, so I've just been talking about Gerald and Reggie. Reggie and Gerald, and then just got carried away. And didn't realize I'm making it too dark. I also don't want it to take away from the face, because essentially that's where I'd like the focus to be. So I don't want to like put in so much time and effort into the hair. I'm just enjoying the strokes. Just following these wavy lines. Compositionally, I just want to make better choices so that it's balanced out. It's not just this area that's getting so much attention while everything else is kind of plain. Ooh, I think another fun game. Well, it's an obvious one. It was Ninja Turtles in Time. And that was a 2-player game. And it was a beat 'em up game. But I think it was just fun because there were so many different things that you could do. There was like like surfing. There was surfing the sewers. And each boss was very unique and fun, and it was just very creative. The moves were fun. So it was mainly for the creativity that I really enjoyed it, and of course Ninja Turtles were great. Donnie was my favorite to play with. Leo was my favorite turtle. But Donnie was fun. I also remember like you had to like throw the foot soldiers into the screen. That was pretty cool. But yeah, that was a game that was like 2 players side to side. There wasn't much. Like you didn't need to worry about screen sharing or whatever. It just kind of naturally worked. That you together would move on to the next screen. in the future, I might just get myself a Super Nintendo, and now they have like ones where it's wireless, or you could just put one cassette tape in and it has like all the games on there, which is pretty cool. I recently played a game that was that kind of reminded me of like a Super Nintendo game, but much better. Called Blasphemous. Yeah, that's what it was. Blasphemous. And let me just look that up real quick. Yeah, that's it. I'll show you guys the preview for it. Next time. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. Because this stream is coming to an end very soon. Still didn't get to color. I feel like the more time I spend on it, the more I just start nitpicking other things. Gonna have to just do it. Jump into color. Just do it. No, I want to work a little bit more on it because I like how the curl came out. This front curl right here. And I forget that you guys can't really see the arrow. But yeah, that one, I think you guys know which one I'm talking about. That one curl has so much definition to it, and it looks nice. That it kind of like makes everything else about the hair very plain. Too plain, like too much of a stark difference. So I just want to work through all the different parts and see if I could match it. I could harmonize all of it together. I think also all this like video game music in the background kind of reminded me of all this. Why I started talking about all the video games and old school games. Especially old school games is like old school game music. But Blasphemous is very similar to like Super Nintendo games. Like the graphics are like that. It's like pixel art. It's beautiful work. I mean, that's what really drew me to it. It's also pretty dark. It has really dark element to it. The story, like the whole idea behind it. And I beat the game. To be honest, I feel like they could have done better with the story, develop it more, develop the characters more. And develop the ending more. But it was still worth it. Like, it was still great to play. And there's a lot of lore there as well. Not as much as I usually like. And it is like a platform style game. But you guys will see tomorrow what I'm talking about. Like, it's so well done. And such creative characters. Dark, but very creative. I'm gonna say it's like a horror, slightly a horror game. Like not like but yeah, it is a little bit like Resident Evil, like as far as the elements go, but it's just not the same style. It's just the same theme. Personally, I never really liked those kind of games, like those horror games, like Resident Evil or whatever. I thought that they were so like, anxiety inducing. You know, you open up a door, you don't know if something's gonna pop out and freak you out or whatever else, and it's just playing a game for hours that does that to you. I didn't find that to be entertaining. I was like, this is annoying. Like, you're just sitting there waiting until something is gonna freak you out. I don't know, some people like that. But me personally, I didn't get my kicks from it. No, that looks terrible. This looks weird. Yeah, notice that when I zoom in, the delay is almost non-existent for the brush stroke. So like when I'm zoomed out and I make a brush stroke, like the cursor is ahead of the actual line that I'm making. Whereas when I'm zoomed in, it's the opposite. Compositionally, I need to have some shadow here to balance things out. I think I'm going to do a little work on that, and then I'm going to have to call it a night, y'all. You guys came here for the coloring comics, but stayed for the entire project stream. Want to say a big thanks. And gave me an opportunity to work more on this project. Hope you liked the content. If you did, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. Talk about any of the things that I talked about on the stream. I'll write you back. I'll talk about it in the next stream. And your support is greatly appreciated, you know. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. Should be the regular schedule. I'm gonna do this. I mean, each time I'm hoping that I'll nail it. I've been looking at her face for so long now that I'm like, I could just probably try to draw the nose with a blindfold on. Because I could see it so well, but I just can't. Like my hand won't do the line. How's that? Is that better? It's like right in between being a rounded tip nose and being sharp. I don't know how else to describe it. There's just a certain detail, like I feel like once I get it, it's instantly gonna look exactly how I see it. Can't quite figure it out what it is. What if I make the lip better? Maybe it's all on the lip and has nothing to do with the nose. Maybe that was it, actually. Maybe I was giving her too big of a bottom lip. Too fat of a bottom lip. I was just making her seem... making it seem off. This is where I'm kind of going against what I'm seeing and just drawing how I think it should look like. Alright, y'all. I think this is it. As in, this is it for the stream. I'll have to wish y'all farewell. Until tomorrow. But, thanks as always for tuning in. I am glad to have you here with me on the stream. And I will see you soon.